Well, is a 100% stock portfolio the way to go? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you got a question for me or you need some advice, just go to prudentmoney.com. There's a section on the top of the page that says Get Help, and go to that and it'll detail out the resources that are available to you. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Well, today I want to talk to you about something that's really important, and I think that by going through this information with you today will make you a better investor, will make you understand the probabilities of making money and how it really does work and what's behind some of the predictions and some of the different ways that Pop Culture Finance tells you this is how you should be investing. And it's learning what goes behind those statements is really true. It's important, for you to know. Let's talk a little bit about this particular stock market investing strategy. The strategy goes like this: 100% into a stock portfolio, starting when you first start investing, all the way until you die. Now, as you know, that would mean that there's no diversification. They're basically, and this professor from I think it was from Emory said in this strategy, you're going to invest 2/3 in international stock and 1/3 in U.S. stock. And it's going to do all these things for you. We'll kind of detail that out here in just a minute. But what you hear is my problems are solved. I've got someone who has researched this and really looked hard at the data and came to the following conclusion that I can get where I want to go. I just have to invest into 100% stock. Investing has never been this easy. A new methodology that can consistently beat the market with a low probability of running out of money. Who wouldn't want to participate in that? And I'm not saying that that's what they're saying by any stretch, because they're not. That's what most people are hearing when they hear about this new way to invest for your retirement and how easy it is. And that's what's going through so many people's minds as they hear it, because that's what they want to believe. What you don't hear is that in order to be 100% investor in stock, you have to be able to be a master of your emotions. And I don't know too many people, and I would even say I'm not a master of my emotions. Probably pretty close, but not a master. You have to know that there are some really bad potential outcomes if the worst case scenario happens, and that worst case scenario could happen. I don't care if it's 1% or it's 5%. On their particular research, it says there's a 7% chance. Doesn't matter to me. You got to be ready for that, especially the longer we go from move down the road in history. From the time that 1929, for instance, between 1929 and 1932, the stock market dropped 86%. That would be worst case scenario. So you have to know that is a possibility. It's not like they're removing and taking risk off the table. They're just taking more risk. You also have to be well versed when it comes to stocks and investing. I mean, you've got to be you have to be at a point in your life where you're very well studied and you understand. Most important, and I want to stress this, you have to trust their assumptions and that they are very valid assumptions. Everything is the assumptions that are made is the devil in the details. And it is always something that you've got to be very, very careful about. It's just like with the buy and hold investing strategy in itself, there are a lot of, I would say, a lot of assumptions that are very aggressive that could end up not being in your favor. You got to remember, the past also isn't always a repeat of the future. Cycles, and we've talked about cycles quite a bit, when stocks are a good time to be in stocks and a bad time to be in stocks, have not gone away. They are there. And this reminds me of, and then when we're right in the middle, not in the middle. I think we're at the end of the cycle. I just can't tell you how far away that end is. Imagine that. But we're in that part of the cycle where investors have come to a conclusion that it's easy to make money in the market. I've seen, having done this for 32 years, I've seen this particular place a couple of times, and it makes people feel invincible as investors. I'll never forget a conference I went into. In fact, it was in London, and that night the dinner presentation was going to be the featured speaker was going to be a guy who wrote a book, Dow 36,000. We were at the top of the tech bubble. It's just like today. I mean, it looks just like today. People thought it was easy to make money in the market. I'll never forget a client that had made 24% in his portfolio back in 1999, and he was just a little bit behind the market by a couple of percent, and he was upset he wasn't making more. That's a time when things have gotten very unrealistic. And so the Dow was at about 12,000 at that point, and they were predicting it was going to go to 36,000. Their assumptions didn't work. I also remember a luncheon that I was at that this advisor was kind of boasting and said, hey, all you have to do is 50% in a stock index fund and 50% in a bond index fund, and that will take care of you forever. Really, that easy? In fact, my next question, but I kept my mouth shut, was, then why are you charging fees if there's really nothing to do? Anyway, I'll let that go. And then there's target date funds. We've talked about that and the downside that goes with target date funds, and how they advertise they take less risk as you get older, but they're really taking more risk than you think that they are. So stocks, if you look at stocks, especially if you add the last 5 to 10 years on top of history, I mean, they look amazing. They look like that they can't be beat. The returns have made most people a lot of money. But are they going to keep it? That's the question. And what are the devils in the detail? Well, let's talk about it. 100% stocks for retirement. A new study says dump the 60-40 portfolio and the target date fund. So what they're saying is that this 100% stock retirement portfolio strategy will get you way further down the road and accomplish all your goals, and will beat the traditional 60-40, 60% stocks, 40% in bonds portfolio, and the target date funds. Incidentally, very easy time to pick on the 60-40 portfolio because of what a tough time bonds have had. But what they are suggesting to do, I'm going to read some of this to you, is to invest 100% of your savings earmarked for retirement in stocks, and 1/3 in U.S. stocks and 1/3 in U.S. stocks. So it comes down to 1/3 and 2/3, 1/3 in U.S. stocks, 2/3 in international stocks. So these authors challenge these two core principles of life cycle investing. So the first one is the idea that investors should diversify primarily through a mix of stocks and bonds. So there's no diversification. Once again, it's just all stocks. And because they have it divided between international stocks and U.S. stocks, I would suggest there's no there's no diversification because they both do about the same thing. Now, they will argue with that, saying that international stocks are not as risky. I would disagree. The second is the notion that equity allocations, stock market investments within the portfolio should decrease as investors age. So that goes along with diversification. You take less risk as you get older. I still can't get my mind wrapped around the fact that they're calling that a bogus way to invest. I think it makes the most sense. It says, for starters, neither of those core investing strategies creates what the professor describes as the most optimal portfolio, a portfolio that will maximize retirement consumption, a portfolio designed when factoring in Social Security as well to give one of the highest sustainable income in retirement. Those are big words for something that aggressive. It says they took a hypothetical, which means they went back and either made up numbers or took actual numbers, and I'll speak to that here in just a minute. They take a hypothetical couple from age 25 until death who served and invested using 3 different strategies: the optimal portfolio, which is what they're doing, the 60-40 portfolio, and a target date fund that follows them as they age. And what they found is this: investors following their optimal 1/3, 2/3 investment strategy and saving 10% of their income each year can achieve the same financial benefits in retirement, including spending and leaving an inheritance, as a couple using a balanced strategy who saves 19.3% of their income, nearly double the amount. Once again, very aggressive claims. 19.3 or 20% would take let me back up. This optimal portfolio, you can achieve the same or better results by just investing 10% versus investing 20%. So these claims, are you on board? Because they look pretty promising. And then they say, the authors of the paper looked at what drives financial success in retirement by focusing on 4 key outcomes during retirement: how well they preserve their savings and the amount they can leave behind as an inheritance. How well they preserve their savings. That is the number one question. I find it hard to believe that they are able to do so in the manner they're talking to without an aggressive set of assumptions. So let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, they've got to have 40 or 50 years of results that have occurred to come up with the numbers in this particular research. So 40 to they have to have 40, 45, 50 years worth of data. What if they don't have the data? Well, they come up with hypothetical data that they could. I'm only guessing because it doesn't really address that in anything that they've written. They come up and this is a popular way, and I think it's very dangerous to just assume based on a trend what they would, if these stocks were invested, if they were real in 15 of those 50 years, then this is the way they would perform. I think it's a very dangerous way of going about doing that. But that's what you'd almost have to do. That's what insurance companies do. They repeat performance on fixed index annuities, which I think is a horrible way to go about explaining how these particular investments work. But the all stock strategy, let me back up. They use the Okay, so the couples invested 33% in domestic stocks and 67 in international stock were much less likely to run out of money using the common 4% retirement spending rule. So using 4% of spending your money of your retirement as your spending factor. A balanced fund had a 16.9% chance of depleting savings, and a target date portfolio was worse at 19.7%. I'd believe that. In contrast, an all stock strategy is only a 7% chance of running out of money. And the Dow was going to hit Dow 36,000 in 2000. So it says when accounting for a 30-year holding period, the picture changes significantly. And this is what I want to make sure you understand, is that it really comes down to the dates that they are cherry picking and can cherry pick to get the result that they want. It is so difficult to get close to accurate results, and we using this kind of data. A drawdown, that they address that, and that's when the investors lose a lot of money during bear markets. It says investors who choose to use the optimal strategy, the 100% stocks, are in for a bit of a rocky road. A bit of a rocky road. You think? A bit. They're in for a very rocky road, one which is going to cause them to dig deep inside and ask the question every day that their portfolio is getting smashed: is this really going to work? And should I get out? These authors aren't going to be around when you're asking yourself a cold hard question of, should I get out? Do I have the emotional fortitude to work through this? And what am I going to do if your portfolio, if you're used to taking 4% out and your portfolio is now down 50%, which is very likely in a bear market, then what you're going to need way more than 4% to live. How are you going to do that? They don't really address that, and they don't address where they've got their numbers from. And they're suggesting that a 100% stock portfolio is going to lose 55%, and a target date portfolio is going to lose 52%. There's no way. So that gives you an idea. There's more to read to this article. But the bottom line is, I would be very careful in accepting that as a legitimate way to invest. So here's some of the things that I want you to consider. And pardon me if I speed through these, because I want to make sure I get through all this information. Number one, if you miscalculate outside of a controlled environment, you will probably be close to being bust in the worst case scenario. So in other words, your extreme assumptions have to work. They don't tell you this. The use of international funds is in no way less risk. They carry stock risk as well. In fact, most people don't understand international investing because it's different than the way it is in this country. And what they're using for international stocks, I'm still quite unsure. This is a buy and hold strategy, nothing to manage. And/or it's using a 60-40 blend, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, and the target date fund. Those are the two that they say this 100% investment in stocks will absolutely destroy. What if you hit the wrong part of the cycle? You're getting ready for retirement, and now the market drops 50%. This happened to so many people who held on to their stock portfolios back in the tech bust, which once again I want to say again, looks so much like today. And the assumption that investors can control their emotions, and they're going to be asking that question, what if the study is wrong? I mean, you're talking about a lot of trust in some data to that this is going to work. These studies, we kind of mentioned this a second ago, are done with hand-picked dates and in a controlled environment. And it comes down to how much risk can you take and what do you have to do to achieve your goals. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Why would you want to load up 100% on stock when conventional wisdom and contrarian wisdom, which I always stick to, says that that's a very risky, bad idea? What about being able to save the amount that you want to save in a conservative manner because that's what you are? And the worst case scenario would be the conservative investor who buys into this, or the person who's very inexperienced with stocks buys into this, and they lose 50, 55, 60%. And they're an emotional basket case, and they're ready to jump out. It's just got so many potential problems with it. Yeah, but finding, if you knew that all I have to make is 7%, 6% a year, I save this much and I'll have this kind of retirement. To me, that is so much of a better situation that you put yourself in than 100% stocks and going down that particular pathway. Is it going to be about retirement or high performance? And to me, everything I read about this is all about high. They're appealing to that part of the reader and the investor who wants to go through a high performance type situation. This type of a lifestyle of 100% stocks and continuing to grow at a level that is just not sustainable. You got to remember that. But once again, emotion, if you've got it all figured out and all you have to do is this, then you'll be fine. Now, we've talked about many times about the various different ways that you can invest, and it comes down to a strategy. This, to me, is a high-powered, souped-up type of a buy and hold strategy, because that's really all you're doing. You're not doing any type of strategy in here except for hold on to this mix. And it makes you think that, wow, it's a slam dunk investment strategy. Not really even quite. So I probably in 32 years, this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. And the actual paper is 70 pages long. Don't think I'll be reading it. Maybe I will. But this is one of my concerns, is that people read this and come away with the idea that there is an easy way to invest. And there's not an easy way to invest. Investing is all about how much risk you take, when you take it, how you take it, and making sure that you're using prudent stewardship principles along the way. So I'm thankful that I got through all that, just to spark your interest, give you a couple things to think about. If you were to happen to come across this in one of the pop culture finance magazines or media outlets, you have a little bit of a basis for the other side of the story. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.